We're talking about panic attacks, and I'm gonna ask a therapist what rhymes with attacks. Panic attacks. They're funny because I'm making them light in the song. Yeah.
Did you just come up with that?
Of course. It'd be really sad if I didn't just come up with that. That was that's pretty terrible for something.
Yeah, that was
I
actually
rehearsed.
practiced.
Yeah, that'd be a rough go.
Well, that was still pretty good. Good job.
Thank you. You gotta sing about something that's not fun. That's how you overcome it.
Wow.
I do believe that, and I think that you'll see that a lot. And a lot of people these days are saying what you can and cannot joke about, what a comedian can and cannot make fun of. And I don't believe there is any one thing that you can't. There's no topic that's off limit, because who sets the bar? Who sets the standard for what is and what is not allowed to be made fun of?
What about too soon?
It's subjective to an individual hearer. Let me rephrase
The
that.
audience?
It's subjective to the individual who hears it. Some person might think a joke about 9/11 is too soon still, whereas maybe some person thinks like, how many years have passed? So,
Well, I think what that is, like, the general census is, it's been enough time. Perhaps someone could make a I don't know.
well, that's what I'm
decent
saying is that
joke.
who makes that call? So that's why it's up to the comedian or whoever's making the joke to if you're going to joke about a sensitive topic, you better make it funny, because otherwise it's just going to bomb. And now you're just kind of bringing attention to a topic no one wants to think or talk about. But if you can make it funny, then you now have victory over that topic.
I do think, though, that the too soon, especially if it's just months, or if it's still ongoing, and when there's, very, very severe situations going on, I do think the too soon clause is important. And I think perhaps a joke that could potentially be really good can bomb.
Well, of course, every joke can. But then again, who determines, like, okay, there's like an official comedy panel of judges, and we've determined this is too soon. And because what if for me, like someone like me, let's say if you have a darker sense of humor, the too soon is what makes it funny. That's what prevents it from bombing.
And I'm one to really love a good joke, or even the setup of a good joke.
Like
and
most.
Huh?
Most people love a good joke.
Well,
Something
yeah,
makes you laugh.
but I know that a lot of people can be very sensitive
It
to
sticks
certain
up their
topics.
asses. Yeah.
Sure. But I do think that if I were to hear a joke that is about a big issue that is currently occurring, depending on what the joke entails, I think I wouldn't laugh or think it was funny. And I think the majority of the population would agree.
Right. That's why if you're going to tell a joke about a sensitive topic, and even if it's not a topical big news issue at the moment, this could be a recurring theme. Themes like molestation, things that are not funny. They're never going to be fun things. But if a comedian wants to go down that road, they have to really, really expertly craft that joke. And if they can do it, or not even a comedian, let's say you want to try to go down a road and see if you can make some people laugh about a dark topic. Like if you can set that up properly, and if you can do it and you get someone to laugh about a really, really uncomfortable topic and dark topic, then you won that moment.
Well, who's that comedian that's on Netflix now that made that joke about villages being taken over and, doing harmful things to the women and the children and things like that?
Shane Gillis?
Is that the one who made
The
that
Vikings?
joke? Yeah, the Viking joke?
Yes. Yeah, the gay Vikings.
Yes.
Yeah.
See, that joke...
Too soon. The Vikings did that thousands of years ago. Too soon.
Well, the joke itself, and what was the joke again about?
Well, I mean, I'm not going to try and tell his joke.
Right. But it was around...
But essentially, it was like, can you imagine, seeing the Vikings come to your village, and they're like, well, we all know what they do. They're going to attack our women and our daughters, and then they find out that the Vikings are gay, and the Vikings roll up this rainbow flag on their ship. They're like, oh fuck, like, that's worse. They're coming for us men. So that's which is obviously a topic that is a dark topic that he made hilarious because he expertly crafted it.
He did. He did. Now, again, right. The subject of the joke itself is obviously, not really funny, not something we joke around because it does happen and unfortunately continues to happen.
Most people don't, but some people.
He did manage to make a joke that landed and hit.
He's a master at what he does, to get to that level. And so, and most people have their own line, what's too far and what's just not okay. And everyone's got it. What I'm saying is that no one can make that claim for another. Like no one can tell a comedian or actually tell the other person that's listening to a joke, hey, that's too far. You should not be laughing at that. Because everyone's got their own internal standard of what can make them laugh. Some people have very dark senses of humor. Some people get offended, at nothing.
What do you think about, because that just made me think of when Kathy Griffin did that Donald Trump.
Well, the thing with that is that didn't seem to be a joke to me. It was a shock statement. She was holding a picture of, at the time, because I think she did it while Trump's still president, right? I'm almost positive, because she got a lot of, flack for that. Because, and even, how many people hate Trump. The thing with that is that wasn't a joke. Like she was just trying to shock. And to me, that's kind of more pathetic. Like when you're doing something that's obviously gruesome, and it's going to get a jarring reaction. It's going to evoke a visceral, jarring reaction, seeing a very realistic beheaded head of a sitting president. Where's the joke? Like, it's not like she's crafting a bit where she's gonna wait, there's a punchline and it all makes sense. That's what a master comedian can do. They can take something dark, craft it into a bit, and then when the punchline hits, it's like you have this like release, like, oh, okay, I see what he was doing there. I see what she was doing there. But that whole Kathy Griffin thing, that wasn't a joke. She's just trying to shock you, and anyone can shock you. There's no talent in that. There's no skill in that.
I mean, I don't know what the headline was for the post when she did that. I mean, I do recall seeing it, and I don't remember thinking too much of it other than like, okay, well, Kathy Griffin's always very, very much out there, and she's
edgy, and she is a funny comedian.
She is, but then, I saw the comments and then everyone talking about it, and so I could see the perspective. But then also I wonder, and I'm sure Kathy Griffin has spoken about this already, because significant time has passed that
I'll call her and ask.
She's talked about it, but I do wonder in the moment if she thought perhaps, oh, this is funny, we'll post this, we'll do this, and everyone around her,
this is what I think,
and her team was like, oh yeah, go for it. This is funny. Nobody really likes Trump. All these other things, but then it kind of just like slapped her in the face.
Well, I think it ballooned because I think you're right. I think that she went for it because it was Trump, and especially in the media, he's very easy to bash. It'd be like mocking Biden right now. But that whole stance. For those of you who don't know what we're talking about, Kathy Griffin. I don't know if it was a headline or if a news site or there was a picture of her holding a very, very.
Oh, she posted it.
Oh, that was her post because I know she tweeted.
Well, she did it.
Okay, I didn't know if it was associated with something else, but she posted a picture of her holding a beheaded head of then active President Trump, and it was extremely realistic and it was very graphic, and so it was clearly a shock value move. I don't think she wasn't making a bit. There was no punchline. It was just here's Kathy Griffin holding his head, and so.
I still think she's hilarious, but I don't know about that move. I think, but again, also how do we give grace to people even when she did that, right?
Yeah, I'm not saying she should be. I don't think anything should happen to her.
Well,
I'm just saying people are going to respond when you make a shock move like that. People are going to respond, and I think there's a big difference between telling a dark joke but trying to find the humor in a dark topic. There's a big difference between that and doing something for sheer shock value. That doesn't take any skill. It takes skill to craft a bit. It takes skill to to make someone laugh about something that's dark or uncomfortable.
Yeah, I don't know if her intention, like the intention of it, was shock value. I really don't.
It had to be. I
I
mean,
don't
what else
know.
did she do? I mean, I think obviously she was also, making it very clear her thoughts about our president at the time, and many other people, were doing similar stuff. Making statues where he had like a tiny little micro penis and with
What?
a really. Oh yeah, some artist in New York, I think, put this statue out in public of him like naked with this really unflattering like Michelin Man jelly roll body, and there was like a tiny little like Vienna sausage micro penis. Yeah. So, like I said, I don't think anyone should not be able to express
They get
themselves.
creative.
They can get creative, and rage can be a big factor for boosting your creativity. But as far as the joke goes, it can be a really amazing thing when there's trauma, or when you have something in your past, and who knows how we want to take this, but we all have stuff that we have been through that we'd consider to be traumatic or difficult. For me, laughter makes me feel like I have power over that issue, as opposed to making me feel like, oh no, I can't think about it. But I'm speaking for myself. But I would never tell someone else, hey, you should be laughing at that because that is funny. And the exact same way, no one could ever tell me, hey, you should not be laughing at it because that's not funny. To me, that's just as silly as me telling them that they should be laughing at it. And like I said, if the comedian knows what they're doing, or whoever the joke is, if you're out to dinner and someone's trying to take a chance with a risky subject and see if they can, roll the dice after a couple whiskeys and make the group laugh, you're taking a chance. And your risk is that group might walk away like saying, all right, no more dinners with that dude. That's psycho. Or you can make someone laugh. And it really just depends on, again, what you're trying to do. Because you have the Seinfeld and the Jim Gaffigans, and they're masters at material that everyone is okay with. And then you have darker comedians, the Louis and at the time Carlin and stuff like that, who are going to take, or what's his name? Hicks, Bill Hicks. He was a master at that as well, taking dark issues and being able to find the humor in it. And the way I see it, I gravitate towards those comics because laughing about something to me is a way of kind of taking the power back over the helplessness of the situation. So,
but again, it all depended on how they structured the joke.
Right, so, like I said, it depends on if you can find a way to make it funny. Because if you can't find a way to make it funny, not only do you have a joke that bombs, and again, I'm not a comedian and I'm not a comedy teacher. These are just my observations of what I see and the comedy stuff that I like. But if you try to go for something risky and it doesn't work, not only now do you have a bomb on your hands, not literally, that's a different joke. If you try to make something work, you have a joke that bombs, and then you have a pissed off crowd. Like, how dare you joke about that?
Yeah, and then bring on social media, bring on all the comments, all the hate.
Yeah.
Now you're on the news.
Yeah. I mean, and Louis did stuff like that. I know he's kind of still a little bit of a pariah, but he was able to do, jokes about dead kids and like stuff that was really dark, but somehow got the crowd to laugh at it.
Who's that guy? What's his name? A very angry dude. Yells all the time.
Bill Burr?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Him. He just, he does like magic,
Oh, yeah.
He's like this grand artist that is just kind of like throwing paint jokes.
Yep.
And, they land wherever the hell.
Well,
and they magically just become this piece of comedic art.
He's brilliant. And, I think people do, every comedian, every fan of comedy knows how good Bill Burr is. He's arguably, he's right now one of the, if not the greatest comedians working today, is my opinion.
And I was going to say, is that because of your love for him?
I love Bill Burr, as you know, but I also think that that's pretty well established in the community right now. Like Bill Burr, Chappelle, Chris Rock is back at it again. But he's up there. He's in the current like Mount Rushmore, and he has this ability to. People think, oh, he's just this angry Boston guy, and so that's what's amazing about his appeal is that he's able to actually appeal to like a blue collar class who's just a working class. They're angry. Maybe they're fed up with, it's just a tough day and you want to go home and have some beers and laugh at a fellow person who's angry about the world. But he's also making very insightful and very intelligent points. But he's doing it behind this angry red ball of blistering, fumes. So that's part of his appeal, because he can appeal to people who really know what he's doing with a well-crafted joke, but also someone who just likes the fact that he's calling out things in society that need to be called out. But yeah, he's a master at that. And he's even said that he'll pull back and like he will make an audience, he'll do something intentionally to make an audience pull back, just so he can see if he can reel them back in. He says when he's in
he's doing
in the
craft?
moment, as he's joking, like if he's in a red state, he said he's gonna shit all over Hillary, or I'm sorry, shit all over Trump, just because he knows they're Trump fans. So, and that's his way of kind of working out, I'm gonna piss these people off and then I'm gonna bring them back. And same thing, if he's doing jokes in California and LA, he's gonna shit all over Hillary or Biden. And
do you think that's something? And I'm sure comedians know this. But do you think that's something that comedians come to over time, like over years of doing the work, that they just kind of realize these things, or they have their mentors, or they, kind of like just like comedy wisdom?
Well,
right? Part of comedy wisdom is something that you have to gain with experience, or is comedy wisdom something that is able to be taught and you kind of can just like go from the get-go?
I mean, I think comedy is, again, disclaimer, not a comedian, so it's not, it's not like I'm preaching to my profession here. But just from observing and being a big comedy nerd myself, comedy seems to be maybe the one art form that you cannot learn by watching someone. You can learn principles, you can learn timing, and you can learn things about setups and callbacks and all these kind of principles that are part of comedy. But it seems to me, just from an observer, that it's like the one thing that you have to go and you have to do and fail over and over and over. It's a trial by fire art, and you have to do that in front of people. It's not like basketball where I can practice my shots, and get a solid 3 down, or even guitar. You can sit, Eddie Van Halen sat on his bed for 10 hours a day practicing guitar. And that's what allowed him to bring that out to the world. Whereas a comedian, you have to do that in front of an audience. And you have to be willing to bomb and ready to bomb. So that comedy wisdom that you mentioned is definitely something I think that you have to do by failing.
And I also know that most comedians talk about that whenever they're doing interviews or whenever they're talking or having their own podcast.
Yeah, I'm just kind of respouting what I've heard comedians say. So very little of this is my own,
No, I know. I guess I was just thinking about, like, with most things, I know we were initially talking about panic attacks, and last time we were talking about anxiety and how stress and how a lot of the things, even with our craft or with our careers, our occupation, we get it right the more we do. But the point is we have to do, because if we don't, and if we just kind of stay in the same place, we never really grow, or we're not even able to see what we're actually capable of.
Right. And I just want to hammer that nail in real quick, is that to bring it full circle. That's why I was like singing and laughing, because haha, fun panic attacks. And I shared my panic attack experiences on our last talk. But that's, for me, the humor is a way of me taking power over those situations where I feel helpless.
I don't know if also most people know it, and maybe some do, is that one of the first times that anybody gets a panic attack is usually they end up in the ER.
I did.
Yeah, me too. Me too. But I had no idea, and I'm sure, I don't know if you did.
No, well, like I said, my first panic attack was when I had that synthetic marijuana that I took, and so I thought it was some sort of a physical reaction to that.
Yeah, I think most people think that they're having a heart attack, or they're having some sort of.
You know what a panic attack is. You've heard it. You've heard anxiety attack, but I thought a panic attack was just like, oh no, like you're freaking out. I don't think that you think, at least personally, I did not think that a panic attack was an actual flight or fight response, like an actual adrenaline response to your fear. It's a weird thing that something you're afraid of that can be completely irrational can have such a massive effect on your body. you know, and your you know, which obviously that's how we're wired. We're connected, you know, the mind and the emotions are connected to the body. But like, it's interesting. It's interesting that, so I didn't think of that. And so that's why I went to the ER.
Well, yeah. And I think me too. And I think that's how most people start off is they go to the ER and then the doctor tells you, oh, it was just a panic attack.
Right.
And the whole like, it was just, I think strikes people as like,
right.
What do you mean? You're just kind of
oh man,
giving it less of a value because this was such a scary thing. And now you're saying, oh, doctor, it's just a panic attack. That was terrifying. And I think I'm having a heart attack. Can you do an EKG? And actually that happens often times too is, okay, they do an EKG on you.
Yeah.
You're fine.
Well, they get a lot of people who come in who are convinced, you know, there are people who think that they're having a heart attack because of heartburn, you know, because there's that acid burning pain in your chest. Oh, and I had that experience. I didn't tell this when I was telling you, but the firefighter who picked me up was the biggest dickhole. He was such an ass. And actually, it's the only time that I've gone and had a complaint. I complained to the LA City Fire Department, and I had to sit down with his sergeants. Now, whether he ever got busted for it or actually,
here comes that firefighter. It was you. God damn.
Oh, I'd love to see this guy again. Just so
it was that bad.
It was so humiliating. So I'm having this panic attack. At the time, you know, I was an EMT. And, you know, of course, like, you know, EMT and my roommate, I don't think he knew what to do in that situation. So he told the firefighter who picked me up, like, he's an EMT. And so now this paramedic knew that I was an EMT and he knew that I was, you know, freaking out on this synthetic weed. And he made it very clear to me that he had no sympathy for my situation. He's a you're an EMT? And I'm sitting there trying to calm myself down. And I'm like, yeah. He's like, you're an EMT? He's like, here you go. And he tosses the blood pressure cuff at me. And he basically tells me to take my own blood pressure.
Oh my God.
No, I'm talking about like he actually crossed the line ethically and from a practice standpoint, from the scope of a paramedic. So LA City Fire Department, whoever this guy is in North Hollywood Station, I hope he's still not there. I mean, this was 15 years ago. But he was such an ass, and he made like the worst night of my life, like incredibly worse, because he made me take my own. He's like, so you're an EMT, huh? And trying these drugs. Any plans to join the fire department? I'm like, no. And he's like, good, you know. And then just completely, just any chance he could get was just a complete ass. And then I could tell even the driver of the ambulance, a partner, felt bad for me.
Oh,
because he was kind of, he was driving while this asshole was in the back of the ambulance with me. And he was just kind of like, he didn't say anything, but when he helped me, he was like extra nice. He's like, come on down, like help me out of the ambulance. And then they dropped me off in the ER in the bay, like in the ambulance bay, and they bring in their patients. And I saw this asshole medic giving report to the ER nurse and was basically, so we got a guy who did this. And then I saw the nurse like laughing and the paramedic was laughing. So I'm sitting there like in the midst of a panic attack. So I hope LA City Fire has, or is it county? Maybe I'm blasting the wrong department. I don't remember. But it was
that he's improved since then if he's still doing.
No, I hope he lost his goddamn job. Like I'm feeling it right now, like a rage in my core, because I felt humiliated by him on top of this panic attack that I was having. He was being a total ass to me. I didn't have my shoes because I just went out to the ambulance, and I'm sitting in this St. Joe's ER in Burbank and watching this paramedic, you know, give report to this ER nurse, and they're both laughing. Meanwhile, I'm like still trying to calm myself down. I mean, it was a bad experience.
That's one thing, you know, and there's a lot of great nurses and there's a lot of great professionals out there. There just are. But I've heard so many times from my clients or even from people that I just know that they had a horrible experience when they went to a hospital from someone who was giving direct care, whether it was a nurse, whether it was someone there who was a staff, who was talking about them within you know, an earshot.
Yeah.
And that's just one thing that I don't know should be really talked about more is professionals. please, like if you're doing direct care, please be cautious about what you're talking about your patients, about your clients,
Yeah.
because they can hear you and they hear you.
I'm in an ICU for work all the time, and I hear nurses. I was just listening to a nurse today in the ICU, talking about one of their patients, and and so I told the bitch this, and then and you could hear it from the nursing station. And there's a lot of amazing nurses, and obviously these people, they see things that most people don't see on a daily basis.
Sure, it's a hard job.
Yes, and wears on them, and you do get very jaded. You get very jaded, and you start to lose. My experience is that you can easily start to lose your compassion because you're dealing with, especially if you're dealing with a lot of psych patients. Like that firefighter probably thought I was just some dumbass druggie who,
You're just some dumb kid at the time.
And I guess I was. I mean, I was 22 and didn't know what I was doing, and I didn't know what I was going through, but man, I regret not getting that run sheet from him, because a
run sheet?
The document, where he documents the vitals, he documents his assessment and all that kind of stuff, because I think it would have I didn't know who this guy was, and so when I put in a complaint, I don't know if
like his credentials
it ever got back to him.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I don't know if they actually ever, because his sergeants were very careful to. Do you remember who was on that day? Like, they were not going to restate whoever this guy's name was, even though they very clearly knew who was on that day and who I was talking about. So, anyway, water under the bridge. It's too soon. It's too soon.
Too soon.
Don't make a joke about that.
Well, also, again, I hope that these things aren't occurring, in California, in the U.S., and that everyone maintains their professionalism when they're treating someone or when someone's scared, no matter what age. If you go and try to help someone in your profession and you find them, they're scared, they're panicking, the last thing you want to do is to double down.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's really unfortunate because, as someone for myself who's worked in either ER or critical care for a long time now, you can very easily lose the personal connection. When you are in frequent situations where, there's trauma, you have patients who are being presented with trauma in front of you all the time. And then you have people withdrawing. You have people who are not pleasant. It's the same thing with cops. Cops deal with difficult people every day, every single day. When a cop goes to their shift, they know that, something could happen today, that it's my last day on shift. So it's hard to go through that and be an experienced officer or nurse or whatever you are, and to also hold on to the empathy and the compassion, because I feel like a lot of people, especially in the medical field, they get into the medical field because they want to help people. But year after year, night after night, you can start to, it wears on you. And then people just become, especially if they're, and having a panic attack, or if they're withdrawing or whatever, a psych patient, it can become, you can be easily disconnected. And that firefighter was very, very clearly disconnected from any humanity in me.
I think he was just beyond disconnection at that point.
He was just annoyed. They probably pulled him out of his comfy, station, wasn't doing anything. And then, oh, great, I got to go on this stupid run because this dumbass kid thinks he's overdosing. And, so he just made the worst night of my life just insanely worse. So, yeah.
Well,
and I think
sorry
about
you
that
went
sometimes.
through that.
Oh, thank
I
you.
had no idea.
You can joke about it. It's not too soon. I was joking.
I'm sure I'll come up with something good tonight.
Yeah, see?
Don't you worry.
And I joke about that because, like I said, that kind of helps for me bring the power back over that situation. Humor is a powerful thing. No one really knows what humor is. So it's a powerful thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's why how often, there is that statistic where as we age, we laugh and laugh less.
Really?
Someone in
I
their
didn't know that.
50s, some in their, there's research out there. And I don't know the accurate stats on that, just because it's been a while since I've read that. But yeah, as a kid, as a toddler, right? You're laughing all the time.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
As a young child, as a teenager, for the most part, if you're not going through all sorts of trauma, right? You laugh with your friends, you laugh with your family members if you have a good situation going on in your environment. But the older we get, the more we confront just difficulties, whether it's financial difficulties. We're not laughing as much anymore.
Well, life becomes less funny, and life becomes less curious and mysterious, and life becomes less that you lose your wonder, and you lose your wonder, and you lose your laughter.
Yeah, you approach your 30s, your 40s,
That's
your
it.
50s.
We're getting a live, laugh, love plaque for the kitchen.
Yeah, necessary
Yeah.
to remind ourselves
Yeah, you can
to
just
always laugh.
live, laugh, leave. We'll put that on our doormat.
Live, laugh, and leave. Get
Live,
out of
laugh,
here.
leave.
Get out of here with your laughter. We're in.
I mean, it's an old click. It's an old cliche, but it's true. I mean, the whole laughter is the best medicine, and but that's an interesting stat. I didn't know that. I didn't know that people statistically laugh less as they age.
But I mean, also, if you think about it, I think most people will agree, right?
Yeah.
It's for the most part, and now we're not talking about everyone, of course, but for the most part, most of us just don't laugh as much.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Life has a way of
All
preventing
sorts
that.
of hardships, whether it's from divorce potentially, from family members passing, things like that. It's just so many things happen throughout our lifetime, and as we get older, that things become less funny or redundant.
Well, this is
Or
also
here we go again.
right.
All of this is just redundant. I've gone through this before.
Yeah.
New day. What's next?
Cool way to
Not to bum us all out. Yeah.
Man.
Jinx.
I was gonna say laughter police, but you're not policing. You're putting out the fire. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, look, it's true that elder depression is a big thing, and when people get older, like you said, and if there's less things for them to be happy and joyful and excited about, then yeah, I'm sure it eats away at who you are as a person.
But unless
In addition to the physical,
unless they're actively working on it, which is any time's a good time to really start working on yourself, on your mental health, to really value what's good, to wake up every morning and be thankful for, and I know that people talk about this all the time, be thankful for what you have, but it is so true. And you mentioned cliches, and some of these are cliches, but it almost sounds like wisdom talk, right?
well, there's a reason these old tropes and stuff are ensconced within our kind of our language, because
that
it's true.
and philosophizers.
Go ahead and say that again.
I was thinking of philosophize this.
The podcast.
Well, sure, and then I was thinking about philosophers, and then whatever. You know what I mean?
Where's your philosophizer program? I went to philosophizer school.
Philosophizers?
You got me all twisted up now. Philosophizer. Where's your philosophizer degrees? I hold a philosophizer degree from
Point being that
Columbia's.
humanity has come to conclusions. Even in the Bible, I mean, every time you always bring up the Bible, and I'm not necessarily religious or anything, but you bring up constant direct quotes from the Bible.
There's a lot of old wisdom in there.
Yeah,
That helps me.
But even so, right? Taking out the religion aspect of it, what you're saying, and I'm sure you can conjure up right now like a verse from the Bible that
Jesus wept.
What?
That's a real verse. That's the shortest verse in the Bible.
Jesus wept.
That's all it says. Yep. Anyways, go ahead.
Well, now it's funny because as you said that, I was just thinking like, well, that could potentially mean anything. Like Jesus wept at humanity and what they're going through, what they're doing,
maybe they left off an S and it was actually Jesus swept. Like he was cleaning the floors, and
so it wasn't Jesus wept.
I mean, he did a lot
swept.
of manual labor. He was a day laborer, so maybe it was just Jesus swept and it got lost in translation.
They just dropped a letter.
Yeah. Well,
in old, what is it, Hebrew?
Yeah.
Or Latin?
They dropped an English S in Hebrew. Latin. No. Well, not quite. It was... Well, the New Testament was written in Greek. Most of the New Testament was written in Greek. But the Old Testament was Hebrew. So anyway, we get off the rails here a little bit. I forgot what you were talking about. But
I was just saying that humanity has come up with these things.
Yes.
Because they realize, and over centuries, in a decade, we all die. Like on this earth, we all pass away and new people arise and you just learn on your own too. And these things have been learned and now they've been written. And so we have that now to pull from, right? As far as what they've learned. But even then, there wasn't technology for this information to be spread. So how did people have this common knowledge of values, of ethics, of right from wrong?
A universal code of ethics. And
well, perhaps, but messages that they realize over time, like wisdom, which we can relate to now. And as we get older, we also learn, you know what, this is actually what matters.
Right.
These things, these items aren't of value, but perhaps family is, or perhaps being grateful for having food, water, shelter.
Well, this is what's supposed to be kind of the crown jewels of the elderly community or the people in your family or in your life that have been through a lot and have a lot of life experiences that, you learn from them. And that's how this wisdom was passed down. Generations passed on values and wisdom, and that's kept up, and or at least to a degree. And it's up to all of us, to pass that down to our children, to instill wisdom and values. Now, again, values can be fluid as far as what one family can value versus another, but there's generally a pretty well agreed upon established code of ethics. Which is why it's hard to make the argument that there's no such thing as right and wrong, because if there's no such thing in right and wrong, then we have no right to tell another culture what they're doing is wrong, even if it's throwing gay people off buildings for being gay. You know what I mean? So there is an agreed upon code of ethics that humanity kind of, I think, always known. And it used to be called the natural law. You don't see that anymore, but some of the old stuff that I've read, philosophers and thinkers and whatever religious figures, they call it natural law. There's a natural law that's kind of embedded in the human, whatever you want to call it, soul, psyche. And there's this morality and this code of ethics that we rely on as an entire species. We rely on the cooperative knowledge of that. Again, one tribe or one culture might have very, very, very different, a way of deciding what's moral and what's not. But at the heart of it, there's a connector somewhere. I don't know how far deep it goes. I don't know if this is making sense, but in my head, it makes perfect sense. Mm-hmm. There's a connecting foundation to morality that all cultures share. And then it kind of varies off in different, tree branches as far as their differences and their practices, and what might be modest or immodest might vary greatly between, let's say, an Amish family and a coastal tribe. Those modesty variations are going to be pretty vast.
Oh, I guess I'm thinking as you're saying that, culture aside, instinct.
Yeah, well, right? A moral instinct. Yeah.
We all do have that, and that's that whole gut feeling. What matters to us? What's important to us? The thing that we're realizing too, and that we should really start to realize, is what matters. And also what might matter right now probably won't matter.
Of course, yeah.
In a year from now.
Well, this is what separates like the temporary and the transitional importance, as opposed to like a universal, almost eternal importance, if you want to look at it that way. Something that's eternally important, no matter tribe or creed. Really messing up my words today. That's just because so much is going on in that brain.
It's nonstop.
Unfortunately for some, yeah.
How do you decide what's important or not? Between all the things that you're thinking about, how do you decide what to say?
When I'm talking?
Yeah, when you're talking. Like, how do you figure, or do you just kind of like figure out, okay, this is not important, this is important, let me just spew.
Well, for anyone who might be listening to this, I think you can tell I just let it flow. I swing, I hope, and I'm not batting 1,000, but I see the ball and I swing. So, I don't know. That's an interesting question, I guess. Like, you're self-editing, for me at least. I'm self-editing as I'm talking, and I'm trying to first of all, organize my thoughts and ideas, and then think of like, this doesn't make sense. And
Well, because I do want to say that just knowing you and what you've shared, you your mind is just going a million miles an hour, right? And so your thing is you have to figure out how to continuously pause yourself to be able to get your thoughts across and to also be perhaps heard, because you can potentially have a lot to say.
yeah, and that's why I've actually learned doing this podcast in the short time we've been doing this, how prone I am to stop mid-sentence and collect myself. Because I want to make sure that I'm spouting out my mind's working faster than my mouth is the problem. And so I'll kind of be like, and then that's very annoying to listen to, I'm sure, which, I didn't know until I started listening to myself. But I think for me, it's learning how to edit before I speak it, like mentally edit myself before I speak, because I tend to do it on the fly, where I'll edit what I'm saying as it's coming out of my mouth.
So really thinking your thought thoroughly and then expressing it.
It's the classic think before you speak, and I think while I speak.
Oh, shoot.
You just correct yourself there.
Shoot.
Oh no, don't say
That's the whole think before you
Don't
speak.
say the schnit word.
That's think before you speak.
I think you
just did it.
corrected yourself while you were speaking. I think your mouth won on that one. No,
I caught myself.
Look, this is why I'm very into, downers, things like booze, because it slows you down and you can be much more in the moment and your mind isn't racing, and you can actually, until you get to the point where you're slurring and you can't remember what you're going to say, because that approaches very quickly. But, that's something that for someone like me, something like alcohol really helped. I say helped as a pass because obviously I'm not drinking at the moment, but
yeah, well, and I'd really like to go much deeper into that, because it's funny you said helped, but I questioned the help. How much it actually helped. Versus
immensely. I'm not saying it's necessarily good for you. What I'm saying is that for someone like me who is, and look, obviously alcohol is the most abused drug in the world, so I'm not the only one who likes it, but it really does help me kind of just slow down and not try and have my mouth and my brain like competing for thoughts,
Sounds rough.
Well, I mean, it's just something that I'm used to.
Is it one person speaking over another, or is it just kind of the same voice? Not that like
I feel like
having
it's
any
this.
other
I
thing.
feel like it's the same voice, but it's 20 facsimiles of it. It's like 20 clones of different voices, and they're all coming from different angles. My guitar teacher said this to me once too, where he's like, you're a fast learner. He's like, but the problem is that your brain works faster than your fingers, and I can tell when you're playing on the fretboard that you're actually trying to, your fingers are trying to respond to the impulses that your brain is sending, and you're going to have to develop that nimbleness and that quickness in your
or
fingers.
get more fingers.
Or grow more fingers. Yeah, So if anyone's got some fingers they want to get rid of, maybe can do something like that. But
That's a scary thought.
actually, yeah, we know a couple. But no, it's just you have to. It's just a constant practice is learning to find a balance, like a natural balance between here, what's going on up here, and then what's coming out of your mouth. And that's why I think I'm a little hesitant to try and throw someone off the face of the earth career-wise if they say something maybe that they don't actually mean to say. Because sometimes, especially in the moment, you can say something and you can almost put something out there into the world that your brain didn't get a chance to edit or think through.
Yeah, especially if you're on the spot.
Yeah, or drinking, or if you're under the influence of something, you're going to become spewing out a lot of stuff that, you look back and you're like, okay, maybe there was a different way to convey that message, or.
I mean, that reminds me of a lot of people who are, in the media or who have power in what they communicate, and that there's this higher expectation. There's always that, right? There's this higher expectation of people who are in the media who have a certain level of, like I said, power, who should be held accountable to what they say. Now, how does that happen with someone who's live, who's talking and speaking on camera, and perhaps saying or trying to figure out their thoughts, and they have to actively say them out loud, right? Is people are very harsh on people who are in interviews and perhaps say something that maybe they didn't intend to.
Well, this is what I
Right?
always say: intent matters. When you're speaking and you're talking about something, the sound that your mouth makes is of little importance compared to what you're actually trying to convey, the point that you're trying to make. So if you say the wrong word or something pops out that is at the moment culturally, a no, that's a
Well,
no.
what about though if, let's say, the intention was there? Like, I did intend to say these things. Now, it has come up to my attention that I said these things and this affected this certain group of people, this other group of people. I have now reflected, and you know what? That's a good point. I never thought about it that way. Or perhaps in the moment, I didn't think about X, Y, and Z.
Right.
But now that it's been brought to my attention, you're right. I'm sorry that I said that. Let me reword. Do we give people a second opportunity to reword after they've reflected? Because reflection is important.
Right. Well, it seems like right now, I mean, there's different viewpoints on this. Some people say cancel culture is fake, and look at it doesn't exist. Look who's Louis C.K. is back to selling out Madison Square Garden. That's proof that cancel culture. But the point is that people like to jump, especially at a successful person, especially if someone is, whatever, a divisive figure. Like if you say the wrong thing or if you come at the wrong group, you will be chased after by the mob. And the mob right now has a lot of power, especially online, especially in social media, because now you can be a faceless figure in the mob. You don't actually have to confront someone in real life. As we know, you can confront them online behind the safety of your computer, your phone. So I think it is imperative for us as a society to allow people a chance to, first of all, reflect and maybe go back on something that they said, but also just know that there's a lot going on when someone says anything, especially under the pressure, like you said, of a live situation. If they're on a massive global podcast, or if they're on a massive global show, or anything that's going to be in a public attention, you have to have grace with people, and you get and I'm talking about with things that they say. I'm not saying we should give Bill Cosby another chance to mix someone's cocktail. That's not the kind of grace I'm talking about. I'm talking about if someone fucks up and they say a word that maybe is not the nicest word to say, but it actually has nothing to do with the context of the point they're trying to make. That context is everything.
Well, giving grace, though, is such a hard thing in our country, and I can't speak for any other, but we don't really give people grace, even
No.
to our friends.
We love to see people fall.
To our family members, to the people that we even love most, we don't give grace. To
Oh,
our
yeah.
kids. To our kids, too.
To ourselves.
Especially, number one, ourselves.
Yeah.
I mean, we are so hard on ourselves that I am not surprised that we're so hard on other people as well. It's every day. I'm sure even as we're speaking, there's millions of people right now giving some hardship to someone else. Or, oh, you didn't do that. I can't believe you didn't do that. Oh, look at this, or look at her, or look at him. Like, guess what they did, right? It's the fact that someone else happened to say or do something, and then, oh, well, that perhaps makes me feel a little better.
Well, there's that, of course. When you are...
That's a simple simplification of it, I guess. That's an easy simplification.
Yeah.
There's more to that, of course.
Of course. These are not... none of these are one-liners. There's a whole complex variety of things going on. And grace is something that is easy to forget, to be gracious to yourself and to be gracious on others, because, man, we love to pass or fail people. Including ourselves. We love to say, oh, well, they fucked up, so they're done. Do not give them a platform. Do not give them this. Get them off your show. Get them off. As if to shut up and silence someone actually is going to make them change their perspective. It doesn't really work that way.
But even outside of those who have some sort of status, just everyday people, right? Like ourselves. We're hard on ourselves.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good point that you bring up because I mean, what is anxiety too? It's the constant self-doubt, the constant self-deprecation, the negative self-talk that we don't address, that we must start to address because that's how you really start to work on anxiety or even aspects of depression. And now I'm not talking about more severe, symptoms of depression or someone who's really experiencing something awful currently. I'm talking about just the self-talk.
Yeah, and you touched on it earlier. I mean, generally when people are hard on others, they're also hard on themselves, and I think that's pretty much always the case. I don't think that you can be gracious. Again, I'll bring up that an old verse. You love another as you love yourself. It should be your goal to love your neighbor as yourself, to love someone else as you love yourself. But you can't do that if you don't love yourself. And if you're not kind to yourself, and I've seen it firsthand in my life with myself, with my own father, with, just people who are highly, highly self-critical, even self-hating, that gets passed on to other people in your life. That gets passed on, especially people who push your buttons or remind you of yourself. Those people get your wrath in the same way you get your own wrath. And it's not always easy to remember that because you don't really realize it in the moment.
It's not really unless you're actively trying to work on yourself, you're just carrying out with your day obligations that, and that's the thing is like back to anxiety and panic attacks. It's okay. We experience a panic attack. We experience anxiety. Now what do? Do we avoid those places that gave us anxiety? Do we avoid those places that gave us a panic attack? Or do we really start to address it and work on it? And now the question is, but how? How do I do it? Right? And there's, that's probably a different conversation.
Well, that's when I ask you. I mean, that's what you do,
right?
Is that you teach people what steps to take, how to work on themselves.
Well, one is also
actively.
Yes, and also understanding how a panic attack works, the mechanics behind it, right? And then also, I really want to learn more about the person, right? What they're experiencing, how they see themselves, how they see the world, who's around them. Because also that's a big contributing factor sometimes is who are around these people. Who's around you? Are you in a home? Are you in a setting where there's just negative spewing? There's walking on eggshells. There's toxic interactions, right? That you're constantly in this state of panic that's obviously perhaps contributing to that. Or are you living in a harmonious home and all of a sudden you got this panic attack? Now, I don't know how often that's happening where you live in this loving, caring environment.
All the time. I think people can be in the most cushioned, gentle, sweet, upbringings and life and homes. And oftentimes, people, the softer your environment, the less equipped you are to deal with something really, really chaotic and drastic.
And
so that's happening everywhere. Yeah, I think some people just have an internal pre-wiring for to make it likely for that to kind of affect them. And then you have again nature versus nurture. You have the people whose environments will bring that out of them. But I think it's coming from all sides. So then, what would you? I guess to wrap it up, what would you leave someone who, let's say, did experience a panic attack for the first time and didn't know what it was? They come from a good home. They come from a good family. They don't have an anxious home life. They've never talked about this kind of stuff with their parents, but they find themselves, because I think that can be even more debilitating where it's like, whoa, everything's good. What's going on? Where is this coming from? What would be a step one for that person? If I was sitting with you and I told you that was my situation.
Mm-hmm. There's so many ways that I can go about this, but to be honest, it's hard because it's a case by case.
Sure. Yeah.
the
Give me a
variables.
generic answer
I know you
right
want
now.
to get, and that's the thing is people want to know, how do you go about it?
Yeah. It's human nature for us to be, we want like a key to unlock. Like this key unlocks the answer for dealing with such and
Well,
such.
perhaps, one thing that can be a little universal is, when is it occurring? Right? Like
Right.
if you can get a
You can find
sense,
patterns.
a certain pattern of when it's occurring, what current stressors do you have in your life? Or something that might be pressing you, or maybe, I don't know, something that it's in the back of your mind that you're not necessarily thinking about, but it's weighing you down, or something that might be upcoming. And so that'll sometimes creep
Circumstantial or situational.
depending, yeah, or maybe a conversation that you might need to have at some point, and that's really giving you a lot of anxiety, and then it'll creep up on you, and then boom, you'll get a panic attack randomly. So it's really sitting down and thinking about what's going on in your life. What might be causing this stress, this anxiety, this panic? Because ultimately panic is fear.
Right.
Right? So what is the fear? Is it self-esteem based? Is it that, again, it can just vary. And then one other thing too is learning to control your breathing, and there's a lot of techniques to this.
Right. I talked about that last week, is having a physical response to what's going on in your psyche.
But hand in hand to that,
there's got to be both.
Right. Also working on yourself in the way of, how do you see yourself, your perspective? Do you feel like you're in a good place? Because you might be in between, I don't know, either in between jobs, or financially you might not be doing okay, or you're worried about some aspect in your life. It'll come out, right? And that's the thing. It's like kind of figuring that out.
Yeah.
And addressing it. And then one is, again, let's just say you're about to have a panic attack, right? What do you do? Right? One, you said that. What did you say that you do?
Well, right now I say I gotta go pee. I've been holding pee forever.
Okay, I'll try to be
Wrap
quick.
it up.
How about this? What I do, the last time I almost had a panic attack is, well, you kind of helped me through that too, but also I had to tell myself, okay, Melissa, it's okay. You're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. But also you're having to breathe through it, and having to kind of
you
focus.
have to believe it. That's the key. Because I've done that with myself before, where I didn't believe it. And then I just continued to let that fear and that panic just like flood my mind.
Well, this is why
have to focus on believing it.
Right.
Almost.
And this is why trying to train yourself on controlling your thoughts, because our thoughts can escape so quickly, and then it'll lead down a rabbit hole of a path.
Yeah.
So point being is learning how to really manage your thoughts. To be honest, I think I've come to the point, and I'll be quick because I know you have to go to the bathroom, but I think I've come to the point where I can stop myself in thought. And now I still experiencing, a little bit of anxiety or a little bit of stress.
It's taking control.
But I can stop a thought so quickly.
But it takes practice.
Oh, it's taken some time.
It does take discipline. There's a mental and an internal discipline that you actually have to really work on before you're able to and like anything, with practice it gets easier and you get better at it.
Yeah.
But
and of course not 100% perfect, but for the most part I am able to manage my thoughts, and even self-defeating thoughts. I think to be honest, I don't have that very many anymore. And even on my bad days when I don't feel that great, or when I feel like I look like crap and baloney, I can still leave my home and really not care, because I know that I'm going to be okay.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Well, again, having that come through practice, and then you do know, and you've been through it enough to where you are like, okay, I've been through this before. I know exactly what to do. I know exactly how this is going to turn out. I'm not going to die. My heart's not going to explode. I know what's going to happen, and I'm okay, and I'm going to be okay. So that was a good introduction. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Never Date a Therapist. My name is Garrett.
This is why you don't date a therapist, because they'll prevent you from going pee-pees.
Yes, you're doing a good job at that.
Talking more.
Yeah, okay. Well,
okay, sorry. See? All right. Thank you so much.
All right.
Follow, subscribe.
Talk to you guys next time. Bye.